Welcome back. And we are with Dawn Longley from Atlas Training Center. And they focus on helping folks just like you get ready for their CDA. So, welcome to the show, Dawn.
Thank you, Erica. I'm so excited and honored to be here.
Yeah, we're happy to have you. Can
Thank
you
you.
start by telling us a little bit about Atlas Training and how it helps educators earn their CDA?
Sure. Atlas Training Center is focused solely on helping and supporting educators earn their CDA from start to finish. We offer an asynchronous program, which means people can log in and do the work at the time that's best for them. However, we also like to provide a support to our participants from the beginning. So we offer lots of opportunities to connect with the instructors. We have Zoom office hours every week, which I love because not only do participants get to come in and ask us questions, but then we see these groupings of participants coming together supporting each other, right? Oh, I had that question before. I'm a little bit farther than you. Let me tell you what worked for me. And so we see these great organic relationships begin to form among our participants who might be in different states, even. And it really is nice to see. And so we do offer support, like I said, from the beginning through an orientation, getting them used to our platform, all the way to the end where we have a portfolio template laid out and we support them through even the application process, giving them, pointers and things like that.
So you do a lot of this training and preparation work virtually.
Correct. It is. We are a 100% virtual program. And so our program allows participants to log in, do some readings. We have lectures that they can read and listen to via video. They read the textbook, and then we have assignments that support the reading and prepare them to take the exam and to prepare their portfolio. So many of our assignments that they do will come into play and help them when they're creating their portfolio and or taking the exam.
Yeah. So, for those folks that are watching right now, tell them a little bit about what you feel like the key steps in preparing for a CDA credential and how teachers can best organize their time and effort to meet the requirements. Because I have three teachers, maybe four now at this point, who are working towards earning their CDA, and sometimes they have a hard time. Like they get a little overwhelmed because there's so many pieces. How do you you know have them organize their time? Like, what do you think like the best steps might be?
Yes, and I think it is overwhelming, and especially in our industry where we are caretakers. So we're often taking care of so many people. It's hard to focus on ourselves, and the CDA is in fact an investment in our own self.
Hmm.
It can give us personally a lot of benefits as well in our careers and personal. But so what I usually typically recommend to participants is, you know understand that you have a work life family balance that you have to put in with your education. And so making it a goal, making it a priority, carving out time, whether it's a specific time every day or a few days a week that work for you, whether it's early in the morning or late at night. I like to work late at night when nobody else is up in the house. But also I encourage people to expand and take advantage of found time. So I always recommend that they keep their textbook and a notebook with them. And if you're waiting at the doctor's office, or, I pick up my groceries at the store. So when I'm waiting for them to bring it out, I can read and make some notes. So I'm capitalizing on those short bits of time where I might just be sitting doing nothing. And that helps to break down the projects as well, but also give you opportunity to do things. And then breaking it down step by step, um, and not looking at it as a whole piece is important.
Yeah. I found like when I had my journey many moons ago of putting my own CDA together, I found it almost, I felt like accomplished. I would just take a section at a time and I would work on that one section, because if not, you'll start a whole bunch of sections, I feel like, and then you feel like you got nothing done. So I would start with like, today my goal is to get my biography done. And I would just focus on that one thing. I would put it in. It felt really good to make that check mark done, done,
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that to me was the best strategy for me, but everybody's different. And the other thing I thought too was as you're able to collect PD from, is it still 5 years? I don't know if it's changed. Is it over a
It is
course of
5
5 years?
years.
It is. So for folks who've been in the field a couple years, if you don't have your CDA, it's almost silly to not to, because if you've already done your work, in our state here, we're required to do 30 hours of PD a year. So if you've been in the field for 3 years, you're already there just about. So you might as well just make this be the year that you do it. So, looking at what you can also draw from your past experiences that you're able to then put in your portfolio book, I think, is another way to kind of reduce that stress, because a lot of these things you might have already have, right? You've already done, right? So,
And then just taking it, like you said, one step at a time. When we have participants go through our program, once they've completed all of the training, because we do provide all of the training for people who want that as well. But once
hmm
they get to that portfolio stage, we do recommend like just one competency standard a week, which is typically, a couple of pages of work. If you can work on those things and not look at the whole and just
mm,
look at those, those action steps towards the whole goal.
yeah. So you bring up the portfolio. What would you say one of the most important aspects of earning a CDA in completing the portfolio? Like, what are some strategies for organizing it and documenting the required materials in a way that helps stand out to evaluators? It makes it easy.
Yes, I think what you make a really good point in that, we want to make sure that the portfolio is easy for the evaluator to read through and to gather your competency, right? So they are looking to see that you are competent in the 13 functional areas, which coincide with each of the chapters of the textbook if they have the textbook. And so focusing really less on theory and more on practice and what you actually do in the classroom is really important because you have this short, small snapshot of time to show the PD specialist who comes out to observe your competence. And so you want your work and your skills to shine through in the portfolio. So sometimes people want to show that they understand the theory and they know all about the theorists, and that's great. But my recommendation is always make sure that you put that in a way that shows what you're doing in the classroom can reflect those theories. So we don't want you to write about, per se, a specific theorist, but you might want to say, in my classroom, it's set up so that the children can actively participate in learning experiences in each center based on what is, their interest at the moment.
Okay. And so, can we dig a little bit more? Because I know everybody gets so wrapped up in these portfolios. Can we
Yeah.
dig a little bit more on, like, what do you find is the best way to organize it? Is there like specific materials, specific steps? Like if somebody's like, okay, I have a binder and I have some
Mhm.
dividers, right? Is there a particular layout, a particular way? Is there anything else they need to know besides get a binder and a couple dividers?
There's a lot to know. And that's a lot to unpack in that question, Erica. And I think, if you go through, they should get their competency standards book, and that will kind of guide you through the process. And there is, kind of the order that you follow in each competency statement, which follows the structure of the textbook as well. Um, so you'll know as you go through and you need to gather your resources. We have a fillable form, so I'm just kind of seeing how. So we have our participants have it laid out, and they go in and they fill out, and then it tells them what materials they need to gather to fill into those pages. So I suggest that they again go through each competency standard, utilize the competency standard book to give them the ideas of how it should be structured to go through. Um, we suggest page protectors, making sure that when you turn the pages, the PD specialist doesn't have to turn the notebook in a bunch of ways either, making it as easy as possible for the PD specialist, um, but also providing, the required information. So again, following along through that competency standard book, gathering the required materials, and then putting them in order um, in the way that it follows through that competency standard book.
Okay. Thank you. I feel like I'd like to say, right, although you're making this for ease for the person who's coming in
Mhm.
to make sure that they can, you know, check off that you have all the materials. I always thought of when I was making this book, creating the CDA book, was making it for myself
Yeah.
because right? And I think I want to talk about that for a minute.
Sure.
I really want folks to understand, like, although this person is coming to look at it, this is your portfolio. This is where you're capturing what you know about early childhood education, the work that you're doing. I 100% say add some photos in there, make it be appealing, not just tons and tons of words, but make it be appealing. And then this is something I have to tell you as an employer, when people come in with their portfolio book, 100, almost 100% of the time I hire them, just because you come in so prepared, so easy to show me. It's very tangible what you know, what you understand, because again, like you said, making that connection of how you apply it in the classroom. I've met many people in my experience as somebody who employs early childhood professionals, that's, they've taken this class and that class, but then you never see them implement it. I'm like, I need you to be able to implement these
Right.
things in your classroom. It's
Right.
all great to pass a test, but that's not real life. I need to know, how are you able to make this connection with the children, the families in our program. So I think that that's really important. So when you create this book, this person's going to look at your book one time. You're
Right.
going to use it for the rest of your professional career in most cases.
That's a good
So
point.
yeah, so think about, especially when you're putting together your resources, they need to be resources that you're going to actually use in the city and town that you live in.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think it's important that as you create this, we get really wrapped up of if they're going to like it, if it has a shiny sticker. Create this as a working tool that you will use in your practice, and also as a way, just like you would polish up your resume. Bring this book with you on your interviews, because I'm telling you, it makes you look like a rock star. And I can't tell you, not enough people do it. But when they do, they almost always get the job.
I think that's a great point. And I think you highlight how it can be utilized and underutilized.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate you bringing that up because, yes, we do want it to make sure that the professional development specialist can pick up and understand exactly what you do in the classroom, and having those visual aids in there as well. But using it then to show prospective employers that you also know how to use it in the classroom and that you have those skills is really important.
Yeah.
And so it becomes a tool not just for earning your CDA, but for, your career development as well.
Yeah. So the CDA process requires professional development hours. Can you give us some advice where teachers can find high quality training opportunities and how to choose the right ones for their CDA? Because I can tell you, the other thing that I see that always happens is we tend to pick areas that we like or that are interesting to us. I cannot tell you how many trainings that folks will come in that they have on art with toddlers or behavior challenges too. I think that's another one. Teachers are like, sign me up for that. But there are other areas. And so making sure that, that you're well rounded. And so when you're selecting the PD, so can you give a little bit more insight on PD?
Sure, absolutely. So there's lots of ways I think to gain the PD required. You could, of course, go to a program like ours, Atlas Training, and there are others out there that give you all of the training in all of the required areas, because you are required, and the areas are listed in the competency standard book. But you need to get training in all 13 functional areas, which include safety, how to be safe in the classroom, how to maintain a healthy classroom, an effective learning environment, development on all domains, and even program management and families. So, knowing those things is important, first of all, and knowing where you need to have that training and the skills. And then going to, NACE has a lot of trainings. Not only does, it as a general, each state has their own NACE chapter, and within each state, most regions have chapters. Um, you can look on your state licensing for, locations that are qualified to give high quality PD. So it's always great when organizations give PD. And you might find an organization that focuses on like physical development that's doing it, but you do want to make sure that you do that check and balance to make sure that they have the correct credentials. And so you can do that by, checking in on your state websites for your licensing, seeing if they're licensed there. A lot of states have PD programs through their quality improvement programs and things like that. And so those are really ones that you want to focus and look on, because you want to make sure that they are supported and validated by your state licensing program and or NACI, because then you're going to know that you're getting high quality. Again, it's really easy to find PD, but not all of its quality, and you know that.
Mm-hmm.
So those are some of the things that I would recommend, just to kind of focus in on what's going to give you the best information. And as you said, you really do need to expand, because we all have our areas of strength and we like to continue to go there, because
Yes.
when we do those trainings, we feel so good. Oh my gosh, I do that. They talked about that and I do that. And one of the things that we always support our participants and really remind them is that this is a time for you to grow and to be really reflective of your own practices. And it doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong when you can find that you can do something different. And I think sometimes as people, we get caught up in, well, if the way I'm doing it isn't the best way, then it must be the wrong way. And that's not necessarily true. So challenging ourselves to learn new things in areas of interest and areas that we don't feel so strong in is really important in this process, because the whole process of a CDA is to help you grow as an educator, and to move you from where you are to the next level of education in providing that high quality care to children and their families.
Yeah. So, what would you say in your experience, like working with folks who are current CDA candidates, would you say the most challenging part of the process is, and maybe how can teachers overcome it?
So I think the most challenging part of the process is something that we talked about earlier, which is that balance of work, life, school, and making it a priority. Because it's really easy to all of a sudden be like, this is overwhelming, I'm going to stop. Um, and making the commitment to yourself, because we often put ourselves, at a lower level on the list at times. And so I've talked to some participants and I've told them, it's a temporary time of imbalance in your life, right? So things might be off balance. Finding a really good support system. This isn't forever. It could take 6 months to a year or so. If you've gotten all of this PD stuff in the past, it could take you a lot less. And then just prepare yourself and your family in advance. Like if it means that you have to carve out one evening a week to take 2 hours to work on one competency standard, then you're looking at, maybe a couple of months of time, and then setting realistic expectations for yourself. And again, that's not looking at the whole project. So you want to look at the whole project as the goal, but then you want to break down the action steps. Like I'm going to carve out X amount of time to do this. But the other thing is reaching out for help. And that could be to family members and friends if you need help with time management or, support in household duties. It could be reaching out to colleagues and coworkers for ideas on things, but also, reaching out to people in your community, like your NACI community, or if you're involved in another organization, volunteering or whatever for early childhood, expand your support network.
Yeah. So that's a perfect segue to my next question. But one recommendation I would have for my childcare directors that are out there listening, um, if you can have a few, and as I had mentioned earlier, I've got about four folks going through the CDA process now. If you have the opportunity to build a cohort in your program, that is the fastest way to make things happen because they help each other, they support each other. And then you also, as the admin, will put aside time. If you have 3 or 4 people that are going through that process, then you can set aside time to meet with them as a group and be supportive, be a mentor, especially if you've went through the CDA process, which I have twice. I helped my daughter through it, so really 3 times. Just going through that process and getting portfolios, put together. So I feel like, a CDA requires strong supports, as you said, not only from your family, because yes, definitely from your family, but from mentors and supervisors. And so,
Absolutely.
yeah. So what advice do you have other than maybe having a cohort in your own building for teachers to find a mentor? Maybe, they're the only ones that want to do it in their program. And then you mentioned some AEYCs. What other things do you think that they could do? Maybe even in a Facebook group to see if other folks are doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many ways to find connection and support. We were talking about, how our groups kind of form these organic cohorts on their own. And I think having, when employers understand the benefit to their company and they can then create these cohorts. But I also think about family childcare providers and other
Yes.
people who may not have a large group of people to
Mm-hmm.
call on. And so finding that support again in your family, but it can be outside. It doesn't have to be at a work. So it could be someone you work really well with. If you're in family childcare, there's often those networks that are in there. You mentioned Facebook groups, which is a
Mm-hmm.
great way to connect with people. Um, but you may even need to reach out to people who are outside of the field
Mm-hmm.
if you need just support in motivation and moving through. And that could come from friends or, other organizations. Like we have our family support network here in Connecticut that supports family childcare workers. So they have, staff members there. They can reach out to those kind of organizations. And I think the key is not limiting yourself to think I can only get support from my supervisor or my lead teacher or, my, you know, colleagues.
Yeah.
Opening up your view to where you can find that support is really important.
Yeah. So as we start to wrap it up, let's talk about what are some pathways for further development after obtaining a CDA and how can educators keep advancing in the field? Because really the CDA is almost sometimes your first stepping stone. I know it was for me, towards moving towards a long career in early childhood development.
Yes, and I think the good part about the CDA is it often gives people that first taste of a furthering your education, especially if you use like a program either like Atlas or the many other ones or
Mhm.
community colleges that will help you to do the CDA. But also if you're doing it on your own, you start to get that system of education. So you can always continue for your associates and or bachelors. I often encourage people to look at their state colleges and or their community colleges. There's often funding available for those types of degrees if you go to your own state or community colleges. So that's ameliorates the financial expense there. But joining networks and organizations and also networking with colleagues, going to high quality conferences, whether it's, your state's AEYC chapter, or, I know the Council for Professional Recognition also does a conference. There's lots of conferences put on by high quality programs and organizations that they can go to. But I always suggest that they look into that associates and or bachelors to continue their education from the stepping stone of the CDA, because it not only benefits them personally, like we had talked about, but it is a career move and it benefits you professionally, and opens up a lot of doors.
Yeah. I think that, we talked about quite a few things here. So you segued again for me so nicely, but I want to hold on. I'm going to talk about our conference in a second, but I do want to maybe just do a quick recap, and I want to make sure I didn't miss anything here. So let me just get down to the bottom here. I would say 5 tips for preparing to earn your CDA. I just want to recap. First of all, start early and stay organized. If you've
Yes.
been in the field, start collecting your PD that you did this year, last year, and every year before that you can find. So, you've already started. You just don't know it. If you're in the field and you're doing PD, you're already on your way. So grab all that PD, stay organized, get a binder, start to collect all of these materials. Don't get overwhelmed. Break down your CDA into small, manageable steps. It is very easy to get overwhelmed. Set yourself some time, as Dawn mentioned here. Have a clear timeline for completing tasks, each requirement, and keep a detailed planner to stay on track. When you do that and you hold yourself accountable, honestly, you will breeze right through it. It's a very fast way to do it. But hold yourself accountable, prioritize those tasks to avoid that last minute stress. Last thing you want to do before having them come out is you're typing up 3, 4 more pieces of paper. So don't do that to yourself. Create a professional portfolio that's impressive. You're going to gather and organize your documentation as you go, showcasing your skills and your experiences and the competencies required for a CDA. And be thoughtful about your portfolio, as I said. You want to make a strong impression for evaluators, but you also want it to be personable and something that you will continue to use long after you've earned that credential, like we know you can. As Dawn mentioned, seek high quality training and professional development. Find accredited programs and workshops that align with the CDA requirements. So what, Dawn had said, they're not all the same. So I'll give you an example. So I just had a workshop approved yesterday that went through here in Rhode Island Center for Early Learning Professionals. And so the trainer has to have some level of formal education. There also has to be, here in our state, you have to pull from 5 resources in which you use to create your workshop that are not older than 5 years. So it's current. So you don't have somebody teaching the same training from 20 years ago, that it's current. Because let's face it, if you're going to a training that was not created in the last 2 years, it's already irrelevant, because it's a whole different world that we're working in, right? So you want to make sure that the training is relevant. You want to make sure that it is up to date. So there are ways to do that, those checks and balances, as she said. Before you sign up for conferences, make sure that they're approved in your state. Make sure that there's some type of validity to it, because if not, why spend all that money? Go to it and it doesn't count. Speaking of conferences, we are holding our 2025 Early Childhood Empowerment Conference, where you'll see Dawn and the folks from Atlas Training Company there, or Center, sorry. You'll see them there. They'll have a table there. You can talk with them about the programming that they do and how they can help you with your CDA. And we are really looking forward to it. It's May 2nd and 3rd. We'll put the link below in the comments so you can come check it out. But that's it for today. As always, remember, it's the small details that make a big impact on the success of your childcare business. Have a great day.